Are we? Yeah, we're on. Good evening, everybody. I would like to welcome you to the May 28th meeting of the Town of Cumberland Planning Board. Paul Leclerc is not with us tonight, but everybody else is here and ready to go. First item will be approval of the minutes for April 16th. And I'll look for a motion.
Make a motion that we approve the minutes as written.
A second?
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor? It's approved. We have no staff site approvals. We have no minor change approvals. So we'll go right into our first item, which is a public hearing, and it's an amendment to an approved subdivision, Heritage Village, also known as Cumberland Forsyth Village, to extend the length of Skyview Drive by 60 feet, located off US Route 1 in the Office Commercial South Zoning District, under a contract zone agreement. The applicant owner is Heritage Village Development Corp., LLC, and the representative tonight from Acorn Engineering is Craig Burgess. So Carla, can you lead us into this one?
Yes, it should be a...
Microphone?
Yeah. It should be a pretty straightforward application. This is simply a site plan, subdivision amendment, rather, to extend the length of Skyview Drive. Right now, it ends where the former Xanton project was to be, and now it's extending up into that last lot. You might do a better job with your slides to show what we're talking about here.
Sure.
Okay, go ahead.
Good evening. My name is Craig Burgess with Acorn Engineering. So the project is the extension of Skyview Drive, which is located right about here on the south side of Cumberland Forsyth. Attaches the current subdivision plan, which was approved previously by the board and DEP. And back in early 2023, Acorn Engineering took before the board a similar project. It was for a 350-foot extension of Skyview Drive. And what that did is that was setting Lot 107A up for the potential multifamily housing project, which was going to be at Lot 107A. So the proposed project is actually just an extension of that for a total of a approximate 410-foot roadway extension. And what that does is it paves the way for the future development of Lot 108, which is at the end of that road, shown here.
So excuse me, Carla, then the title says 60 feet. Is that wrong?
The title on the agenda?
Yeah.
No, I think we've already pre-approved the 350, but it does explain why there's a 60-foot, a 350-foot, and a 405-foot length in all of the paperwork.
Excuse me, if you could go to the first slide and just show on the map, the aerial view. Okay, so we're just show on the map here, from you're gonna go from where to where.
So a portion of Skyview Drive is already built out, and that existing roadway is approximately 28 feet wide. So and that ends a little bit after this commercial lot here. So it ends here. So the proposed extension of the roadway would just extend up to approximately right here at the end. So it's about a 410-foot extension of Skyview Drive. And the project is also proposing to construct that road 28 feet in total width, and that same waiver was approved by the board back in early 2023. So we are requesting a waiver from that so that we're not fully building out the roadway in general conformance with the commercial roadway standard, which is a 32-foot total pavement width. Instead, we're going 28 feet. Again, that waiver was approved back in 2023.
So the 60 feet is.
Sir? Sir? You need to address any questions after the presentation, and you need to do it through the chair. But you'll get your chance.
So in front of you here is the plan that was approved by the board in 2023, which shows that approximate 350-foot long extension. Included with the application material, the plan looks very similar. It's for the total roadway extension of 410 feet. There were very minor changes that were made as part of this. We worked with CV Mahar, which peer reviewed the plan. We were able to address all of the comments and any comments we received from the town. Some of those minor changes just included some changes to the water main and the sewer design, but relatively minor in nature from what the board saw in 2023. So tonight we're looking for approval of this project just to kind of pave the way for future development of Lot 108. And I'm here to answer any questions the board or the public may have. Thanks.
First of all, questions from the board?
So just to be clear, this is picking up from the end of the 350-foot extension that's already been approved but hasn't been built.
Correct. The entire extension, including what was approved last year, has not been built.
Correct.
So
okay.
it's all relatively, it's going to be brand new.
Carla, we're going, if it would when did we approve that? Do you remember? Because we're going to need to do an extension. Is that a correct statement?
What date did you have for when that was? done?
Sometime in April is what I believe that I saw,
April of
2023.
2023.
So we now,
It should be fine, it's 2 years.
this one says construction of the expiration of approval. Construction of the improvements
with
covered by any
subdivision.
site plan approval must be substantially commenced within 12 months.
But it's subdivision.
I'm looking, I mean, that's what's in this packet right now. I would assume whatever we approved have similar language.
Okay. So you're reading the standard.
Expiration of approval.
Oh, expiration of approval must be substantially commenced within 12 months. You're right.
I mean, we can do an
Substantially.
extension, but I don't think we can probably do that tonight because it has to be a public hearing, correct?
Afraid so, yeah.
And can we approve this when it's,
Yeah, I think we can do it at the same meeting, the next
I'm
meeting.
getting,
Are you answering too? Yeah?
I see
Yeah,
heads
we'll do it at the
moving.
next meeting. We'll do both at the next.
So we can
meeting.
approve this even though it's at the end of something which theoretically has expired. We have a 350-foot gap,
What I'm saying is, don't do anything with this tonight. Table it.
except maybe have a public hearing because we know
Yeah.
some
Yeah,
people.
that would be.
Yeah,
good.
we'll
And-
get the public.
Yeah, and
Okay.
then,
That makes sense to me.
Any other questions from the board? Then I'll open the public hearing. If you could step to the microphone and just state your name.
Sure, okay.
Over to the,
Good evening, my name is Luke Pluto, I live at 18 Clipper Street, so, again, I was just requesting to go back to the original so I could see exactly what we're talking about in terms of the distance. Thank you. So can you show with the mouse there where you're going from where to where?
So you're on Clipper right here.
Right.
So we're just extending it up. Just, I don't know what that distance is,
Okay.
but it is,
Here, on the other one, I can visualize the other one better. But just, can you with your mouse, just show, you're going from, I live on that street, so you're going, where's the road end now? Skyview,
it's right there,
and it would take it up how far?
to about right there.
Okay, so when I moved there 5 years ago, one could actually go through, there were some rocks, and then there was a huge berm, so
can you
all
get
that's
so
gonna-
the public can hear you?
Sure, so when I moved there 5 years ago, it was actually possible to connect through there. There were some rocks, but then a large berm went up, so is that going to, is it ever going to connect to Clipper Street or no?
no, it's, the subdivision's been approved. to have the road into the lot they're showing right now. That would be the terminus of that road. There's no plan to connect it. That's not what this approved subdivision shows.
Okay, and the
They
lar-
could come back and ask for an amendment, but that would be
Okay.
very unlikely because they'd have to get approval of everyone who lives in your subdivision.
Okay, and the large berm will stay there then?
Yep.
Okay, thank you
There'll
very
be-
much.
And there'll be further buffering too, once it's decided what's going in there.
Yeah, okay, thank you.
Any other
Okay.
questions on that? Any other member of the public wish to comment? Hearing none, I'll close the public hearing, and I guess, do we even mess with the waivers right now, or?
I mean, my feeling is we often let them, I wouldn't mess with I wouldn't actually bring the waiver up, I don't think, tonight, but we could let them know if we're generally supportive of the waiver, which I would say, to be consistent, I'm fine with
Yeah.
providing a
Well, let's get a
similar
straw
waiver.
poll. What's, again, what's the waiver you need?
The road width.
So the town standard calls for 32 feet of total width of pavement width, and what's proposed is 28 feet. So the 28-foot waiver request was approved in 2023, but also it's important to note that the existing roadway out there is approximately 28 feet as well.
So generally on the board, no.
I'm fine.
So we've
with it.
pretty much got, you've pretty much got a consensus then. So Carla, are we going to be, we'll have all of our i's and t's
I hope
crossed
so.
and dotted?
Yep.
So that we can just go ahead, we'll put,
There's still, you're still awaiting your DEP amendment.
So the roadway was a part of the last amendment, which included approval of this plan. Also showed Skyview Drive extended up in this area as well. But there was never an actual roadway design that was part of that approval.
Okay.
There was actually a little bit more impervious than what's proposed here. So there is no actual DEP approval needed, but I could reach out to Maine DEP just to see if they'll respond and let me know whether or not this meets their current approval for the Cumberland Four side.
Okay. All right.
so I guess we're ready for a motion to table.
Make a motion that we table an amendment to an approved subdivision Heritage Village to extend the length of Skyview Drive by 60 feet.
And a second? Okay, further discussion? All in favor? It's a vote. Yeah, we should, we'll get that on first, and we should be able to get everything squared away on that.
Great, thank you.
All right, moving on to item 2. This is a public hearing for a site plan review for development of site plan review, Twin Brook Playground, 185 Tuttle Road, tax map R4, lot 13. The applicant owner is the town of Cumberland, and the rep is Jeffrey Reed from CV Mahar. Before I have Carla lead us off on this, just for informational purposes, what we will be looking at tonight in relation to the playground is a site plan review. All we will be doing with regard to the playground tonight is reviewing where it's going to be. We have, at this point in time, nothing to do, and probably won't, as far as the actual design of the playground itself, except if it relates to any kind of drainage issues. But we will not be addressing the design of the playground. So Carla, do you have anything else to lead us off?
I don't. I would pitch it right to Dan to
Hey,
describe.
go ahead.
1 second, please.
Yes.
Carla, would this be an appropriate time for me to mention?
Yes.
Yeah. So for the board, I received email traffic within my neighborhood on this topic. I don't think that it will preclude me from listening to the presentation and having an open mind as to how we will vote.
Yeah, I agree as far as the board. Yeah, one of the things that I kind of have to point out every once in a while, that unlike the town council or the school board, that we're a quasi-judicial branch, so just like you can't go to the local Superior Court justice and say, I want Sam to get off on this traffic ticket, that we cannot be contacted directly on any item that's on a planning board thing, but the public can show up for a public hearing, and they can also send us letters, and we read these letters at the beginning of the public comment period, so everybody is aware of what's been said. So a little bit of Planning Board 101 on that before we start. So go ahead.
I am not Jeff Reed. I'm about 7 inches shorter, unfortunately, but my name is Dan Diffin with CV Mahar Engineers, here representing the town for what we're calling the Twin Brook site improvements. And really, this project is within 2 different distinct areas of the Twin Brook recreation area. The first, the playground over in here by the soccer fields, adjacent to the wetland area where the footbridge now goes to sort of the shelter, sort of in the middle of that recreational area. And then the second along the access road off of Greeley Road, where the town is proposing to add parking. So I'll walk through each of those areas in a little more detail. Within the playground area over by the soccer fields, the goal is to replace the existing footbridge to create an ADA accessible path from the shelter down to the new playground area and around the playground area. That'll be a 6-foot wide walking path that's going to be about 750 feet long, 4,400 square feet of impervious. The second sort of target is adding parking along that existing access road up against the fence that's there now, to take advantage of that space and to really sort of center the playground-centric traffic to that parking area, but also to increase parking out there. And then we're proposing a 6,000 square foot surfaced playground area, which includes about 4,500 square feet of actual play structure area, and then 1,500 feet of what's being proposed as a splash pad. And as the chair mentioned, we don't have specific playground equipment to present tonight. That's still under development, but that is the area we're proposing for the planning board's review. We also have about an 805 square foot gazebo on the plans. The open play area will be the sort of the grassed area that's remaining in and around the playground. We got these cool embankment slides that'll fit into the little hill out there with some rock stairs for the kids to use and climb up. Rock stairs are super important because those hills can erode pretty quick, so that's why they're included. And then to meet our stormwater treatment requirements for this side of the site, we're proposing a bioretention filter adjacent to the parking. And here's sort of a blow up of that area. Not quite blown up enough to read the words, but I can walk through sort of what's being proposed. Here's the ADA walk from the shelter down through, and right now it crosses that wetland over within a footbridge. We're proposing to expand that footbridge and pick it up to make sure those slopes are 5% or less and can be accessed by folks with ADA challenges. And then that will kind of tie around this playground area in between the fence and the proposed playground equipment and splash pad, and then all the way around to tie into the walk that's on the other side of that grassed area. So yeah, here's the 4,500 square feet of playground structure area, natural playground area, whatever the committee pushes forward there. Here's the splash pad with our water line connection. This hatch area here is the gravel parking spaces proposed along that fence line. And then from there, we have a very shallow ditch that's just going to carry that runoff to a biofiltration area here that will outlet into the wetland there after being treated. And then we have the rock stairs with the embankment slides over here, very natural playground addition to something that will really fit into that slope fairly nicely, we think. The hope is to put this in without much adjustment to the soccer fields, but that will be obviously assessed when play on those soccer fields continues and the playground's sort of built out. So that's the playground side. The Greeley Road side is an addition of approximately 64 parking spaces right off the access drive. As we understand it, there's overflow over there during certain events when the fields are full. People are parking there generally already on the grass. This would create dedicated gravel parking to sort of help with that overflow so that we're not damaging grass or creating a stable parking area. The side will also include construction of an under-drain soil filter that will capture and treat runoff from one of the gravel parking pods, and then the establishment of a deeded meadow stormwater buffer that would treat the other portion of the gravel parking. And that bioretention filter is actually on the other side. There is no wetland impact proposed for this portion of the project. We did have those redelineated this year to make sure that we threaded our parking outside of the area, and we actually had quite a bit of area left there. So here's Greeley Road, here's the existing entrance into the site, and these darker hatched areas are the proposed gravel expansion parking spaces. Then we have a shallow swale along the backside of the larger parking space here, or the one closer to the intersection, with an under-drain soil filter that will outlet in just adjacent to the wetlands, not in the wetlands. That's the outlet for the clean treated stormwater. This other portion will be treated with this deeded buffer, which really doesn't mean anything different will happen there with the ground. It just means that will be protected as a buffer area and will be mowed per the DEP requirements. So we're not digging it up or anything. We're just putting a pretend box there that nobody can develop in without changing the deed. And so, again, about 64 spaces. We didn't show striping out here, and the peer review actually commented on signage for telling people where to park in between posts. That doesn't really match with the nature of what happens at Twin Brook. Be nice to be able to put wooden rails along each side here or pave, but that, again, that's not really the natural appearance, and that's, I don't think the signs on the posts would really probably be followed, but if the board thinks it's important, we can certainly add those to the plan. So overall project details, we're proposing this as a 3-phase project, and it's written in the application, but I wanted to cover it here today. And the reason we're doing this is because the parcel is subject to a site location of development permit, which means that to do the entire thing, we have to go in for an amendment to that permit. But there is an exemption under the site law to do up to 10,000 square feet of impervious or redeveloped area within a year. So phase 1 here is shown as the walking path and the footbridge over by the playground area, and the 20 gravel parking spaces along that fence within that area. And that can be done under the exemption to the SLOTA. So we don't need to amend the SLOTA permit to do that much of the project. Beyond that, for phase 2 and phase 3, which is the rest of the site, we'll need to get into, we'll need to have our SLOTA amendment before we can start that construction. So I know oftentimes the board will approve a project subject to the DEP permit coming in. This one, we propose a little bit of a different approach, approving phase 1 without the requirement, but phase 2 and 3 would be subject to the DEP permit. A couple of other pieces of the project. We do have about 210 square feet of temporary wetland impact, and that's really just to remove and replace that footbridge access for ADA, and that will be elevated up above the wetlands, so we won't be filling those wetlands necessarily. And then we do have, well, there, I just covered that. I kind of cheated there a little bit, but if we can get phase 1 approved without being subject to the DEP permit, and phase 2 and 3 with subject to the DEP permit, that would be ideal for the project. So I think that is a quick overview, but happy to answer any questions in detail if needed.
Any questions from the board? Ann?
Yeah, I do have questions about this project. Can you hear me? Yeah. Okay. I was really surprised by this project. I hadn't heard of this before. It got onto our agenda. Where is it coming from? Was this considered by the town council? Is it in our annual budget? How much is it going to cost? All those kind of questions.
Yeah, I think the town council's working on it right now, but I'll let Bill speak to where they're at in the process.
I think it's been kicking around for a while. It was in the CIP a few years ago. The council basically funded it last July with the budget we're currently in, and looked at a plan for that was submitted to the rec committee to consider for building some type of park that was more than just a swing set and a teeter-totter. So part of the process is that, as you know, Twin Brook is part of a bigger SLOTA permit, and we were trying to also make everything we do in this park ADA accessible, so that some of the work that could be done over the summer with our own Public Works Department. And that would be primarily the sidewalks from the shelter building back toward the other trail, toward that, the head of that first parking lot. The playground subcommittee of the rec committee, the bigger umbrellas under the Parks and Rec committee, they're still working on the development and the design for the different components. I believe there'll be 3 different type of elements in the playground. There may be some type of water feature. There'll be some conventional type of playground with more of the conventional equipment. And the third element would be the actual, there'll be another element of like natural structures, natural features to match more in with Twin Brook that would incorporate a lot more landscaping and buffering from, I guess what I'll call the Tuttle Road end as you come into that first parking lot. So all of those are in the works. We are working with what used to be known as called Viewshed today, but it used to be Terry Dewan. Eamon, I'm trying to think of his last name, but he's built about 6 or 7 different playgrounds in southern Maine area. He is working with the playground subcommittee now to develop all 3 of those different elements. The more difficult piece of all this is actually the DEP review, because we do have to basically modify stormwater. We have to modify the use of the areas, and that's why we've kind of come before you with CV Mahar's project to basically amend our SLOTA permit and come before the planning board with the uses which are permitted, but the types of the equipment and all that stuff, it'll probably be another 3 to 4 months before we really have our handle around that. So this project was intended more for amending local use permits as well as the state permits. And while we were doing that, we also looked at the other side of Twin Brook as well, as you saw in the drawings, for additional parking areas that would be more defined than they were in the past. People were just kind of parking everywhere, and it just really wasn't working as well. So I asked Dana and his team to come forward. It's kind of a little bit unconventional not to see all the equipment and all the pretty pictures and stuff, but that's still going to be a while before that's all developed. Right now, the project is funded for $150,000. We don't believe the entire project will be built for that much. I think it'll be closer to $500,000 when it's done. I think what we're hoping for is that once we get the project started, there'll be a kind of a master plan with the equipment and so forth, and we'll be looking at also fundraising and corporate sponsorship to help with some of those elements of the playgrounds.
Ann, anything else?
Okay, so what do you want us to do now?
Basically, just approve the whole thing, and we'll come back and show you what it looks like. So, no, I think what these guys are looking for is basically to move forward in the SLOTA process for the stormwater, the traffic, all the elements that the planning board would have to review, regardless of what was put in there, whether it was a swing set and a teeter-totter, and the development of the soils that are going to be around it from different types of surfaces. That'll require a modification of all our stormwater permits, and that's what CV Mahar is working on for us now with DEP. They don't care what we put in there. They just want to know what we're proposing for the ground cover and what we're proposing for those areas that would create additional impervious areas, particularly.
Okay, is there anyone here from the Parks and Recreation and the Subcommittee on Playgrounds to talk about the overall vision here?
I don't think so. Well, yes, there are, a whole bunch, a whole row.
Oh, great.
Yeah.
Okay. maybe in the public comment.
Okay.
Yeah.
George?
Bill, I just have a question, kind of a general question. Was this thought of as a no-brainer by the council from the very beginning of its inception, or did it kind of evolve, or?
No, I think it's evolved over
Is there any
time.
sense that maybe a large part of the public would have some heartburn over disturbing Twin Brooks? Just a thought.
No, I think with all the active play that is there, and the only playground that we have in the community is a smaller playground in West Cumberland at the West Cumberland Fields. Remember, during the daytime, the public can't go on to the school grounds while school is in session to use the playground at Mabel Wilson, which is a very popular playground. If you go there on the weekends, it's pretty active area. But during the weekdays, there's really, West Cumberland, is the small playground is really the only option most parents have. So I think that there have been a growing pressure about, developing some type of playground, and what that looks like, honestly, is still a work in progress.
Lorraine?
Just a quick question. Bill, was there an opportunity for the public to be engaged with the town council on this along the way as this was kind of being thought about and being budgeted for?
Well, I think the original budget piece came out of year-end transfers last year. That was just a set-aside for the funding. And then the rec committee took it on last fall, toward the end of last fall, to start developing a concept. The concept didn't get very far, I can tell you that, because I think there was just some confusion about, where the process was heading, and that's when I kind of stepped in, and we brought in a landscape architect who is now working with the committee. Their first meeting with the landscape architect will be June 11th, I think, somewhere in June, to basically walk the grounds, walk the area, try to feel what can fit in the space, what would be best utilized in the space. And this is a person that has a lot of experience with these type of playgrounds as well.
Okay. Thank you.
Josh?
Bill or Dan, the parking spots near where the proposed playground is going in, those aren't really, it's more of an improvement to parking spots, correct? Because pretty much everybody parks along there now.
Correct.
And then the grassy area that's going to be part of the stormwater infrastructure on the Greeley Road side, there are some teams, I think, that use that occasionally for practice. That won't be impacted by its dual use now, correct?
No, they can still use that for practice.
Okay, thank you.
Bridget? Yeah, I guess just on a general basis, and I know you're going to be covering it as far as your engineering and hydrological studies, but we seem to be having a lot of, these 100-year storms seem to be, and 500-year storms seem to be happening about twice a year. And does most of the runoff now go into the Piscataqua?
I think this map here would show fairly well that the playground area here, over here, does drain down and into that branch, and that this does eventually make its way down into that branch as well, yeah. So, because here's the east branch of the Piscataqua River there.
But I have just noticed anecdotally that in these major 3 or 4 inch rainstorms that we've had now, thank goodness, Bill, you guys elevated Tuttle Road because that went away. But it just seems to me from a visual basis that we are getting much more runoff now to the point where there is some minor flooding of the Piscataqua on the other side of Tuttle Road. And to what extent is this going to kind of add to the confusion, and do you have ways of mitigating the flow?
Yeah, great question. I mean, this, in the grand scheme of the watershed of the Piscataqua is a very small increase in impervious area. So we're adding about a half an acre of impervious for this entire project. And we've gone through our HydroCAD, our stormwater calculations to make sure that this retention filter here was sized to hold back the big flushes of water and keep the flows generally the same from pre to post. And then over here, that's why the soil filter is as wide as it is that is sized to hold back the flows from that portion of the parking there. So I think your overall observations across the state are entirely accurate when it comes to larger storms are just happening. That's one of the reasons that the DEP continues to update the size of the storm that we're required to design for the 2, 10, 25, and sometimes 100. So we've designed these measures to make sure that we're generally keeping the post-development peak flows the same as the pre-development.
And there aren't really, like the retention ponds, let's say that they have up in the center, these are smaller, that don't require a lot of maintenance, is that correct?
Yeah, correct. And actually, the big one that I think you're referring to, this one that's in the center of the parking there.
Mhm.
Yeah, I believe that's a soil filter as well, but a much deeper one. So the bioretention filter here will be a very shallow, maybe 12, 18 inches worth of ponding at times. It'll have plants or grass in it. And this soil filter over here is maybe 18 inches deep, and it will basically be grassed 90% of the time. Then when it rains, it'll fill up for 24 hours or so and then drain out over time.
Well, hopefully you don't run into the situation as they did. They went 15 years without clearing out any of the vegetation and trees and everything else in the retention pond behind the junior or the middle school, and developed some issues out of there. So keep the thing mowed.
Yeah, for sure.
Anybody else have anything before I open it to the public? The first thing I'm going to do is read the 4 letters that we had from the public, and then we'll take public comments. The first one is from Sylvia I hope I have it right, Neisner Castonguay. And hello, Tig and Carla. I'm writing with some thoughts about the proposed playground at Twin Brooks, which I am supporting. My sincere hope is that we do not install a playground similar to the playgrounds we have at Mabel I. Wilson or at the West Cumberland Field, but instead look for more alternative playground features. I am strongly opposed to rubber flooring or any structure that is mostly of plastic and metal, like most other towns have. Twin Brooks is the ideal location for a more nature-based integrated playground. Please consider features that encourage free play, such as use sand as a base, also used to play with. Residents can donate sand toys, shovels, buckets, and trucks. An outdoor play kitchen, residents can donate pots, pans, spatulas, and pictures attached. Running, dripping water to play with, and water playgrounds such as they have in Germany, and wooden structures to climb and play. I've attached pictures for inspiration. The next letter is from Eliza Miller from Mill Road. Hello, Tig and Carla. I am writing with regard to the proposed playground at Twin Brook. Earlier today, I learned about the proposal in the meeting tonight. However, I do not think I can attend. Over the years, I've spent many, many hours at Twin Brook, walking and supervising the youth soccer league offered through the town. The park is one of my favorite places. I think the placement and size of the playground is important in order to limit contact with conflicting activities and moving soccer and lacrosse balls. Also, I hope that the playground design will be as natural as possible in terms of material used. Wood chips and as little plastic as possible will blend best with the Twin Brook environment, and that's from Eliza Miller. And the next one is from Lala Carruthers. Hi, Tig and Carla. I've been reading with interest about the plan to build a playground at Twinbrook. I'm wondering if the committee has considered looking at the Friends School in Cumberland or Maine Coast Waldorf School in Freeport for ideas. Both schools have built structures that blend into the natural landscape, and each has a creative and compelling model of what a playground could look like in our unique and lovely space. It would be wonderful to create a playground that achieves a similar goal, to give kids and families the opportunity to take advantage of this amazing resource in a way that respects the natural environment as much as possible. Thank you for your important work and consideration. And finally, from Phil Gleason. Hi, Tig and Carla. I'm out of town tonight and won't be at the planning board meeting, but just wanted to make a brief comment in support. I was council chair when the town acquired the Twinbrook property, and although there was some controversy at the time on how we would use and maintain it, I think 99% of the Cumberland residents would agree that it's become a very valuable public asset. We are aware that specific uses would vary. We were aware that specific uses would vary over time depending on the need, and although a playground was not on the radar at the time, I believe the current proposal is timely, the location is appropriate, and I'm confident that the design team will come up with a plan which is sensitive to aesthetics. I just want to note the sentence, we were aware that specific uses would vary over time depending on the need. And just for information, I was on the original Twinbrook committee that put together the trails, the design, and the original things, and I would concur with Phil as far as that particular sentence, not whether I'm for it or against it, but that was our thoughts when it was done years ago. So now I'll open it up to the rest of the public that wants to come up. Just state your name and...
Carla, there is one other email
Oh.
in the packet that's on our, on the agenda item.
Is there?
Robert Fast.
Yes, yeah.
Okay, I didn't see that one. Do you have that, Carl?
Would you like me to read that one?
Yeah.
It had just come in. I'm writing to express concerns about the proposed playground. Please pass along to the planning board. I support recreation and believe that our town today provides a wide variety of opportunities for youth recreation. My objections to the planned project are as follows. The town already has a wide variety of recreational options. We are not convinced that a demand survey was completed to determine the need for this facility. 2, this will expose the town to additional liability created when a town-based unsupervised facility is created. 1 child injured and that site can expose the town to long and costly litigation. There is another project at Twinbrook that both takes away from the natural beauty it was intended to have and another man-made structure that will require upkeep and incur ongoing cost. When the residents are already under a high tax burden, schools need improvement, and teachers need salary increases, why is this a priority? Kids have a limitless source of ways to entertain themselves at Twinbrook. I don't see this as enriching our town. I see it as further eroding our open spaces, adding expense, and being unnecessary. Thank you for all the thorough planning and hope my family's views are shared. Robert Fast, 46 Windsor Lane.
Okay, thank you. Now, any members of the public that would like to speak are welcome to come up. Go ahead, Kathy.
Kathy Allen McDonald, 17 Tammy Lane, Cumberland, West Cumberland. I was on the original recreation committees back in the 80s, and I was, back then trying to get something going on in West Cumberland. So what we did not as the Recreation Committee, but the West Cumberland community, we put on Hootin' and Hollerin' Days for 2 years to earn money to create the ball field that's there. And Bill, you said that this may cost like $500,000, but with fundraising. So I really feel that this community, get the kids involved, get them down there, put on some kind of a fundraiser, but make sure the kids are involved, because that's what we did. They was picking up rocks and carrying them off to another spot, and you know, you got to get your community involved, and they will respect it even better. So I really, you know, I don't want my taxes to go up. And I know a lot of West Cumberland people don't, and especially the whole town, really. So please think of ways, as a community, if you want to put this in, do some fundraising instead to put this in. I think it's needed, you know, especially the parking. If they're already, you know, taking over areas, you really should do something about that parking so that somebody isn't slipping and sliding on the grass, you know, and creating more problems. That's all.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Anybody else? Ma'am, go ahead.
Hello, good evening. My name is Sarah Russell, and I live on Tuttle Road across the street from Twinbrook. I'm also on the playground committee, so I'm happy to answer any questions about that process. So I have two things I want to talk to you about tonight. Peter, the first one is about the vision of Twinbrook, and I think I think I talked to a lot of people that have similar concerns about sort of this open-ended view of Twinbrook. We are living in a very difficult time of development in Cumberland. There's a lot of development. There's a lot of pressure on our schools. There's a lot of people moving to this area. When we have open spaces that are unprotected, there will constantly be pressure to further develop them. So I am really hoping that at some point, and I don't know if that belongs in the planning board, if it belongs in the town council, but that sometime somebody in this town will lead a way to have a vision for Twinbrook that can preserve it in a way that the town wants it preserved. I don't think anybody wants it to be developed every 5 years, have something else added to Twinbrook. We know that there's only 4 courts of pickleball at Valhalla. So let's build some at Twinbrook, because there's so much space. I've heard people talk about building an ice hockey rink at Twinbrook, because there's so much space. Yeah, there's a lot of space there. And, I mean, to go to what Bill said about we only have 1 playground at the school, well, we only have 1 Twinbrook, and there's no place like it anywhere nearby. So I really am feeling concerned about this being really, since the shelter, there hasn't been any development there. But this is the first step down that path. And I think it really, really needs to be addressed. I think we all appreciate Twinbrook. So, and I don't think, I'd be surprised if anybody really wanted it to change too much. So that's my first sort of comment. I don't know if it's a question, but I don't know where that comment falls.
Well, let me, one of the things that's going to happen, and you actually raise a interesting question, because there's, the recreation department kind of thinks that, Twinbrook comes under a lot of that with the fields, and of course SAD has fields on the other side, and then you have the Lands and Conservation Commission that's got their little piece of the action. So you're right in a way that probably since we actually did the original Twin Brook Committee back, as Phil talks about, that we probably haven't really revisited the, we've taken pieces of it, recreation, we've taken pieces of it with forestry, but one of the things that's coming up, and it may be the perfect place, and I think it's great that you raised that, is we are going to be developing a new comprehensive plan. And so that would certainly be one of the elements of the plan that we would address, is what is the long-term objective as far as Twin Brook. In the last plan, we had Blueberry Hill was in the plan, Knights Pond was in the plan, Beach was in the plan, Rhines Forest, all of which, because we had a plan and general ideas, went to fruition. So maybe it's time, as part of the comprehensive plan, just to make sure that, because we do seem to be piecemealing Twin Brook from time to time, so that's a valid comment and something that probably should be addressed in the comprehensive plan. So what's number 2?
Okay. Number 2 is I have been on the playground committee working with a group of people on the design of the playground. It's been bumpy, I will admit, in terms of the vision of the playground, and I think what I'm uncomfortable with at this time is approval, sort of what Bill said, approval of something that nobody's seen, and it seems that there's a lot of questions to be answered still before the planning board might approve. Do you have, I mean, does it matter to the planning board that there might be poured rubber at Twin Brook? Is that something that is important to you, or is it sort of just a blanket stamp of, let's go?
No, what we're looking at right now, we have several phases. And this is just a concept design. I mean, this is just a preliminary stage where the developer, in this case the town, is saying this is the general layout, and we do need to, I mean, we have 17 standard conditions of approval. The ones most important here would obviously be stormwater, parking, buffering, and 14 others. And so all this is giving us a general idea of what they're planning to do. And as far as the playground, it's generally, this is where it's going. We're not getting into, are they having magic elephants or swing sets or Dumbo things or anything like that. It's at this point in time, we're more concerned on where it's going, where the runoff is going to be, where the parking is going to be, and all that. As we get further into the approval process, then we'll be getting into those areas. But right now, it's more of a general, here's where it's going, here are the issues that we see as far as drainage and all that. We're not even anywhere near what's going in it. We're more concerned right now where it's going and all the deals. We don't, to be fair, what it's going to cost, whether they do it or not, that's a town council decision. All we're doing is they're presenting the plan, and our job is, does it meet 17 standards of conditions? Whether it's putting kids in the school system, whether it's doing all this thing is not our purview. That's a political decision that the town council makes. All our thing is, the judicial thing is that it meet the standards that we require.
Okay, so when Dan was talking about the different phases, and like the first phase is creating that path from the shed down or along the fence. And do we know the material of that path? Is it a paved path? Is it
Yeah,
a
go
gravel
ahead.
path?
Yeah, right now we have it shown as a gravel path, impervious, really. So what we're trying to do with this plan is grab space. So if the board were to move forward and approve the footprint of this playground, it would give the playground committee a footprint to fit the playground within. What this space, this pad, this impervious walk, what that gives us at DEP is a chance to design the stormwater so that it takes care of the worst case. So what we have shown here is that the pad's going to be impervious, and whatever that is, the path will be impervious, the parking will be impervious. And then if the playground committee comes back and it becomes a natural, beautiful, sort of built into the environment park, then we've at least done our due diligence with the stormwater and the erosion control out there to make sure it's being taken care of from a treatment standpoint. Make sense?
Okay. So, Dan, stay here. My other question, sorry.
Yeah.
No, go ahead. I'll go after.
Okay. I think the other confusion for us, Dan, was that being on the playground committee, tonight is the very first night I've seen any design of slides and rock slides along the hill. So maybe that's a side conversation, but that seems incredibly incongruous that we don't know what's being designed for the playground right now. So.
Yeah, I mean, again, we're just grabbing space, so whether the committee thinks that's the right treatment of that hill or not, we've at least have it permitted through DEP for stormwater and whatnot, so.
Dan, maybe, or Bill, why here? Why in this particular piece of the vast landscape of Twin Brook?
That's a great question. We had some disagreement early on, just in staff internally, and this seems to be kind of the focal point to the shelter building, the bathrooms, the ability to make an accessible walkway at the right grade versus, say, in the back 40, closer toward the bridge where it crosses over to the Greeley Road side. So we went back and forth with that. The rec committee basically looked at this area that I would say goes all the way to that trail that kind of goes up behind that field there, behind this area. We kind of blocked off this entire area all the way, if you took a straight line, is kind of the pathway you walk if you kind of go up the gravel path to the backfield, and said where would be the best area, and this was identified as the best area because you can actually see the outline of some of the more active fields. They're not the full-size fields, but they are the youth-sized fields that are used pretty much throughout the year between field hockey, soccer, lacrosse, et cetera. So that's where the rec committee recommended that we kind of concentrate the area. And it's fairly level and fairly flat, too.
So Carla, they will come back at some point. I mean, this thing won't be done and won't even be approved until DEP does this. But they will come back at some point and we'll go over the conditions of approval and the findings of fact and everything. So this is just phase one. They probably, once more work has been done, they will come back for a preliminary approval, and at that point in time,
We're still in
no, we're still in the public hearing. No, but I am just
Okay.
doing some Planning Board 101 again on what's going to happen. They will come back at some point in time and tell us how they're going to meet the 17 standard conditions of approval. And at the same time, the town will have its own peer review engineer that will study all this stuff and have questions and such. So this is stage one of the process.
Yeah, we've gone through that process, and that was the application we submitted. It kind of went through all 17 of those requirements. And we've had a peer review, which we got some comments that were pretty generic and minor, adding notes here or there. So I think the hope, and I can't speak for the town, but the hope was to, again, sort of permit this project so that we can do phase one without the DEP permit, and then grab this space as part of the permit, and then let the playground committee do their work to fill in the space that the board and that DEP have approved. I don't think there was a vision of coming back with a final layout of equipment to the planning board for approval.
Okay, any more comments from the public?
I just wanted to, that's a good segue too. I just wanted to address what both George and Lorraine briefly mentioned earlier, which I do think the public is very unaware of this project. Everybody, every time I say that I'm on the playground committee, people are saying, what? There's a playground being put at Twin Brook? So I mentioned that in the first meeting that we had with the playground committee. I said we really need a communication plan. The public is going to want to know. And I think that we are way behind on that. And pushing this too far forward without involving more of the public, I think, is disingenuous. So is Twin Brook
Although
needs-
some of that is a council issue and
Sure.
Not ours, but a valid thing as we take a look.
Thank you.
Any other questions from the comments from the public? Terry?
Good evening, Terry Maloney Kelly, West Cumberland. I've been up where you're at, and I remember those days when I'm thinking like, okay, I'm being asked about something that I really don't know too much about. And what I also learned through the process is once it's gone through site plan, that keeps getting referred to as it goes further down the line. Given the lack of public information or input, or the fact that this hasn't even been discussed publicly for the folks at a town council level, I honestly feel like your folks are being asked to put a cart before the horse. Twin Brooks is very special to all of us. For many of us, we don't use it. We pay for it, but we don't use it. And my concern is just attracting more traffic outside of our community, for which we will be responsible for. Thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else from the public that wishes to speak? Yes.
Hi, my name's Libby Gordon, Farms Edgeway, Cumberland. And my husband, Peter, was on the original Twin Brook Rec Committee, helping create the bylaws and the reason for open space in Cumberland and keeping Twin Brook as that, as open space. He can't find his paperwork because it was ages ago. And I know that people have asked the town if there is evidence of the paperwork of the original committee meetings and the original purpose proposed for the Twin Brook Recreation Area. It was proposed as open space. And I believe that that has not been changed, ever. It hasn't, I mean, so the playground does not comply with that requirement for open space at Twin Brook. There have been other things, obviously, that have been added, which is the shelter, especially, but the shelter is critical and mandated by, I think, the insurance company, as far as I can tell. So two things, yes. That space, I think, back to the cart before the horse comment, it seems as though we put a lot of effort into designing this space, into paying C.V. Mahar, I don't know how much, for doing this work, but we don't have public approval of changing the purpose of Twin Brook, and also of looking at this site and keeping it as it was originally designed for. I can see if there were trails made for kids that had rope swings, that had, you know, climbing walls, that had, but all of that would be, again, somebody had mentioned, putting the town at risk. If we create something that they can stumble off of. I mean, I have one of my dear, dear friends, her grandson 2-year-old just broke his leg playing 2-year-old soccer on a rubber flooring. And he had a twisted, fracture. But we need to be careful with what we ask of the town and the responsibility that we give the town to keep this open space, to keep it open all day long for people of other towns, and take the legal responsibility for this. Anyway, those are my 2 points.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bill, did you have something?
Back on December 11th at a town council meeting, the town council heard under item 23-130 to consider and act on authorizing spending from reserve funds to prepare for and permit a potential playground at Twin Brooks. So that was back in December. We've basically went through the process with the Parks and Rec Committee to move forward. And this is about the use of the facility and the permitting required to go along with that use, to permit additional parking areas, to permit additional impervious areas. And I think our application is in order, and I'm just not sure where you're going as a planning board, but I think we have followed those rules. I don't believe we're going to see the authorization from the council to move forward until more information is given to them from the Parks and Rec Committee on what's next. If this is to move forward, it would have to have the authorization of the council to say, okay, we're ready to build this or not, but first it has to come through the planning board for the use of the facility and meeting the 17 criteria that you addressed earlier, Peter. So that's where I think we're at.
Bob?
Thank you, Bill. Bob Vail, Cumberland Town Council. I think that I heard you loud and clear. You know, at some level, this is political, and it's a burden of the council to make sure that we hear what is being said here tonight, and by all the residents. And I don't have any problem requesting that an item be applied to the next town council meeting for a public discussion about the planning or the lack of planning or the input or the lack of input on anyone regarding this project. But as Bill's pointed out, this is a technical application before the planning board. But I think there's a couple other things I'd like to address. I, too, was involved with the acquisition of the Dillenbach property, and I knew Bob and his wife fairly well. There are people in this community that actively pay attention to property and transfer of property and opportunities. At the last council meeting, we had an executive session regarding a piece of property that may or may not come up for sale, but we made sure that we positioned ourselves for an opportunity for us to be able to make an offer should that property come up. So I think that, you know, we're going to lose Ronnie Kopp from the town council, but there's someone that I know has got his ear to the ground, and that when things come up, when there's an opportunity, because as the town grows, the demand and the need for open space, protected areas is just as great as it is for increased classrooms and schools. Anyways, I want you to know that we're not listening. We are hearing, and we will respond. And I hope that allays some concerns here this evening.
Okay, any other comments from, yes, ma'am.
Hi, my name is Lisa Rideout, and I live at 197 Tuttle, which is the original Dillenbach property. And I only heard about this through the Cumberland Crier note that there would be the meeting tonight about a playground on Tuttle Road, which I I was shocked. My husband and I were like, well, wait a minute, that's our backyard, and just surprised that we hadn't heard it anywhere else. And I'm sure lots of other, and I've heard this now from several people, lots of other people in the town may feel the same way, that it's quite a big surprise to know that this is happening. Not that I don't want it, but I just, it was a bit of a surprise. The parking, absolutely we need. I can count the cars that are there looking out my kitchen window, but I know we need space. But I think there are a lot more people who might have something to say about it and would like to be involved in it if they knew more. That's all I want to say.
Thank
Thanks.
you. Carla, we sent notifications to all of the abutters, is that correct?
Mm-hmm.
So anybody that lived on Tuttle Road or off Greeley Road or anywhere
Did you
within that
you didn't
area
receive an abutters notice?
should have got notices.
Oh, good, thank you.
Yeah, so we are required to, prior to a meeting, so that we did do this. So do we have any other members of the public who wish to comment? Okay, bringing it back to, oh,
Sorry. Just super quick. I'm Annie Whitty. I'm on the committee, also the Playground Committee. I'm not on the Parks and Rec. I don't know if anyone here is on Parks and Rec. But I just want to reinstate that I think coming up with a 15-year comprehensive plan about Twin Brooks would be great. Like even tonight, hearing about a gazebo, that was the first for me. So I just think it would be really beneficial for the town and for the development of Twin Brooks and for all the other areas that are considered open parks, open space. Thank you.
thank you. So any more comment from the public? Hearing none, I will close the public hearing and bring it back to the board. I have some question if we're in a,
So, number one, I think there's a little bit of nomenclature issue. This isn't on the agenda as a sketch plan review, it is site plan review.
Yeah.
So theoretically, we could approve something based on site plan review, but Bill, we don't have findings of fact on this.
no.
So,
What,
there's nothing,
what I put in the memo to the board and in the review is that the findings of fact that the applicant put together about all the general findings, that I didn't disagree with any of those, but that we would have this public hearing and we would have an opportunity to get more comment and input. So it's correct, you don't have my findings of fact because I couldn't achieve closure on some of these issues prior to the packet going out. So it sounds like the desire to get approval for the first phase is critical.
It's not worth putting the planning board through this. We'll table it and be back next month for the rest of it. It's just.
Well, I think we have peer review comments too that need to be addressed.
Mhm.
I mean, and we can do it verbally right here, right now, but I
Absolutely.
don't know if everyone wants to sit here for that. Okay.
That's unfair to everybody.
Okay.
Right.
We'll do it, we'll table it, and we'll come back next month.
Okay.
But I think it's important that, again, we have been presented something that has gone through the town council, so our duty is not to, as I say, question the cost, political stuff, what was done before. We have a certain set of standards, and as we've now gone through, that this application at this point is not complete. We haven't gone through the review of these conditions, and so it isn't fair to the public, it isn't fair to us at this point in time to do anything until we get further information. So I'm willing to
well, Peter, again, they've got 5 requested waivers. I think we could give them a kind of straw poll
Sure.
on. They are looking for a waiver for the high-intensity soil survey, a boundary survey, hydrogeologic evaluation, market study, and marking all trees greater than 10 inches in caliper. I don't think there's anything we haven't seen previously. I don't see any concerns in
No.
approving those waivers at the appropriate time.
Same thing here. So, well, it looks like we're okay with the waivers.
But we're not going to approve them tonight.
No, well, we're just, so that they know if they've got to do additional work on that. So, but I think if you've got concerns about the project, it's with your town councilors. We evaluate what's presented to us and with the standards that they have to meet. The rest of it is is literally a political thing with the, and I don't think we're comfortable with going ahead with phase 1 until we get more of a package, but yes.
Yeah, I guess I'm seeking clarification on what is missing from the application now that both the staff and the board are looking for. Is it more information on equipment that's going out there, or is it a better shape to the proposed playground area? I guess.
So what you don't know is that the peer review engineer's comments didn't come in till late at the end of last week. May have even been this morning. So we have an issue internally that we have to work through, which delayed the findings of fact and just snowballed all of that. So I apologize to the board for that. I had hoped we could get it a little closer, but that's not fair to you and it's not fair to the public. So we'll be back next month, and that's helpful, the information you just shared. Your stuff, Dan, is fine. It's really on our peer review engineer and us being able to get the appropriate information out to the board. We'll bring it back to the council on Monday night as well. There's a council meeting June 3rd, so we'll bring it up. Bob Vail and Ron can give his parting shots and put it on others' plates for the future, but we'll be back in June and try to get through the rest of the findings as well.
And what you can do is, as soon as our agenda comes out, you will see the same findings of fact and the town's comments on the finding of fact that we do. If you go in to your agenda and Google on, or whatever you do to get that item, you will see everything that the planning board sees. Now, granted, we got some last-minute letters that came in from the public that we shared, but everything you see on the agenda is the same thing we do. There's no sleight of hand. You're evaluating the same information than we are, but we will have at the next meeting the 17 findings of fact, and you can review them yourself for the next agenda before you go. But as far as what the plans for Twin Brook are, what was, what wasn't, and everything, that is not in our purview. Yes, George?
Peter, can I just interject something? Peter very clearly pointed out earlier that we're not a policy-making body. We're a quasi-judicial body, which means that we look at what the council sends to us and we make evaluations, perhaps certain levels of aesthetics, certain levels of various things, but as long as certain criteria are met, we don't have the authority to make a policy-making decision and say, gee, I don't like the idea of that. And I think, I'm afraid that what's in danger here is people's concern about the procedural process leaving voters out, and there isn't any intent on the town's part to do that. But if there's a concern about lack of empathy, it probably stems from the fact that as far as the question, the huge question of the prudence of spending the money we're going to spend on the schools, leaving the turf fields involved in that same package, I think concerned a lot of people. And I'm afraid there's kind of a backdraft from that is potentially filtering into the conversation here. And that's unfortunate if that's the case. That's all.
So hearing anything,
Ju-
yes.
One quick addition. 9 out of 10 meetings, when we sit up here, we look out and all of these chairs are empty. And I'm sure that happens also at a lot of town council meetings as well. Although I know people can watch this at home, I highly doubt that there's a big viewership at home either. So I would encourage all of you that are sitting here tonight that don't just show up for the planning board meetings, show up for your council meetings as well. That, and have your voice be heard there so that all of the people involved in governing the town hears your voice and you know that they are educated on what the public is asking them to do on behalf of the citizens of the town of Cumberland. So it's incumbent on all of us, including those of us sitting here, to be active participants in the town, not just when it's this one project that, you know, scratches an itch for us, but on a regular basis, paying attention to council meetings, planning board meetings, other committee meetings, so that you are educated on everything that's going on in this town and not just one event. So I thank you for coming, everybody.
Anything else? Are we ready for a motion to table?
I will make a motion that we table site plan review of the Twin Brook Playground 185 Tuttle Road Tax Map R04 Lot 13.
Do we hear a second? Second, motion to table is not debatable. All in favor? Opposed? Again, we will see you next month. Thank you, everybody. All right, moving on to the next item. If I can find my script. Oh, thank you. Thanks. Okay, item 3, a site plan review for the development of a convenience store with fuel pumps and a bank with drive-through located at 181 Gray Road, tax assessor map U19, lot 12, and a portion of 173 Gray Road, tax assessor map U19, lot 13, in the Village Center VCC zoning district under the U.S. Route 100 design guidelines. The owners of Lot 12, Ron Kopp Sr. and Ron Kopp Jr., Lot 13, Ron Kopp Sr., Howell Kopp, and Gerald Kopp Jr. The applicant is the Cumberland Real Estate Holdings, LLC, and the representative is Curtis Newfield from Priority Real Estate Group. So, Carla, where are we?
To start out, I would like to bring the board's attention to another letter that has come in from Janice Spalding regarding this project, and I made copies. That's what I was doing when the meeting was starting.
Okay, so
I'm
we'll
happy-
do that before a public comment
Or I
then.
can just read them for you, or I can pass them out and you can have them, whichever you'd prefer.
Yeah, just pass them out and we'll read them, prior to public comment.
Thanks, Carla.
So where are we on this?
Where are we? I think Kurt would agree that the largest issue is the hydrogeologic, and we have our hydrogeologic specialist, Lisa, here tonight. So we have one that was prepared by the applicant, and it was sent for peer review. And those comments have not, Kurt's not had an opportunity to respond to those, but again, a lot of this information came in late. I got a letter dated today that I have copies here, which are the response comments for the hydrogeologic study. So I think, sorry I'm not being very clear with you tonight, that perhaps just letting Mr. Newfield go through where he feels the application is, talk about the waivers requested, and hear what the public has to say at this point.
Okay, so we're for clarification, that when all the engineering studies are done, the town has its own peer review engineer to take a look at these, and they raise questions, which again, we have tonight, and then the applicant, the engineering firm and the applicant, his or herself, will reply to these so that we're in a position to make a determination, well, two things, that nothing happens unless the DEP approves this. So that's part of the DEP process, and also to satisfy our engineers that the hydrological, stormwater, and all these other issues are addressed. So am I right on that, Carla?
Yes, that's correct.
So sir, if you want to go ahead.
Yes, please. My name is Kurt Neufeld with Priority Real Estate Group. Representing the project with me tonight is Lisa Jacobs with CV Mahar, who we hired for the hydrogeological investigations, Jim Howard, president of Priority Real Estate Group, and Ron Kopp, senior, the owner, are all with me. We had come in tonight seeking final approval. We've been working diligently behind the scenes. I suspect it's a little bit of deja vu in that because the cycle of review with the peer review engineer didn't get complete, and Carla, correct me if I'm wrong, you weren't able to make final findings for tonight.
Right.
So without the final findings, I'm afraid we won't be getting our approvals, but we'll get closer, and we can go over things that we've done since our meeting last time I was before the board.
Okay.
And I think that'll be instructive. Maybe we get some additional feedback before we come back. So I'm going to go through this briefly. It's largely a lot of the information that you heard before, but we are a Maine company that works with Maine folks, Maine contractors, Maine builders, to try to create these neighborhood markets that are really focused on the communities in which they are constructed. The site over there, Skillen and Gray Roads, about 3.24 acres. Currently proposals for the 5,038 square foot convenience store neighborhood market, and seeking approval for a bank with drive-through service, of which we don't have a tenant for it yet. We are looking for it. Status of our other permits: the Maine DOT permit is imminent. We've had another meeting with them. Town staff was involved, as well as town's engineer with Goral Palmer. We went through the plans. We've talked about the sidewalks to be constructed as part of this, and worked in agreement with Bill Shane, town manager, and DOT, that we would put some money in escrow towards the sidewalks. If the town is successful in getting the roundabout constructed, those sidewalks obviously wouldn't be necessary. If it doesn't, the town would move forward with that. DOT is a couple questions on that, but as I understand it, but for that, their permit is ready to be written, and I would expect that in June. The DEP variance for the tanks in the ground has been accepted, and I'm expecting comments, which I can respond to next week. The guy DEP for that said, be conservative and say the permit would be in July. But honestly, it's not even June yet, and I'm still optimistic we would get that next month. I'm going to go through the slides quickly because I think we're familiar with it, but that is the overall parcel being considered. The site plan itself has not changed much since you last saw me here. Working with the DOT, we changed the sidewalks a little bit, and I straightened up these tanks. Like I said, there's not really much difference. The site itself is pretty well understood. One thing that will come up in discussions is the leach fields for these. One of the questions about those, the location particularly of this one relative to the property line, and we will be looking at changing that. Then the other thing that we've added a generator pad here to allow the store to operate during power outages. So we just shifted the shed over and we put the generator back here behind the dumpster corral. Again, there's the view from the aerial with the aerial underneath it. You can see that the entire site is constructed over previously disturbed areas. Some of this area is up against the tree line where we have to put in the leach fields will be disturbed, but we'll put that back in a meadow condition similar to these other things. So really it's not disturbing any natural areas to accomplish our project. This is the grading plan and the drainage plan. As before, we're collecting the stormwater from the paved areas with a series of catch basins. It would go through this catch basin will have an oil stop valve that'll shut off if there's any oil spilled, oil meaning petroleum products or other oil. And then right after that, we've got an additional oil grit separator just to catch anything that squeaks past that. This is all part of that DEP variance. We have a large stormwater area underneath, and then that will come out, tie into the existing system out here. Similarly with the bank building, the surface areas be collected, brought to this stormwater feature. This is a subsurface soil filter. So all the media, all the water percolates through a media for treatment. And these are all oversized, actually up to the 50-year event as DOT requires before we would tie into their systems. Utility plan. All the utilities are available from the road. Let's see with the blue for water, yellow for gas, orange for electric, and then our leach fields out back. Primary change here is on the landscape plan. There were several comments from the public interested and concerned about buffering the existing residents off Cathy Lane. So we've added a double row or a staggered row of evergreen trees all the way around the fence and all the way on the back side of the leach fields to buffer this area. These are a mixture of spruces and firs that will grow fairly dense. I think most of the rest of it has changed, but we are looking at doing some nicer looking trees, if you will, along the frontage with flowering crabs. This time of year, they're spectacular. What we had here are lindens and maples, which are a fine tree, but they're not as pretty. So the trees that we're proposing along that border, again, we've got the red cedar, white spruce, and Serbian spruce. We'd be planting trees that are 6 to 8 feet tall, whatever you can get from the nursery. One of the comments, I should say that Jim Howard met with a couple of the neighbors right there, Scott Morgan and Kathy McDonald. They were spoken before. We wanted to reach out to them, went over the landscape plan changes. We had done similar plantings in Topsom. This is a project now where the trees are fairly mature, but I wanted to show as an example how effective these evergreens can be. This is right off of a road that shields the Topsom Public Works building. You can see it here in the bottom corner and how well it's shielded right along there. This is bermed up a little bit. We would look at berming on our side as well, was a suggestion, but we want to make sure we balance berming behind the leach fields with not clearing additional existing vegetation, which can make for very good screening. But anyway, once these trees are matured, you can see they're a very effective year-round screening The lighting plan hasn't changed much, other than we corrected some observations from the peer reviewer last time. And I'm curious, did our response to the peer reviewers ever make it into your packet?
Yes, I'm looking at it right here.
Okay. So that went in April, but for whatever reasons, we did not get responses until a couple days ago. The remaining responses from the peer reviewer I would characterize as more clerical than technical. It's, you know, my addled brain put the wrong name on the applicant onto the application form, and some of the details, they wanted additional notes or call out some of the line types better. But I don't see anything in there that would be substantially affect the design, and certainly nothing above the ground. One of the comments last time was about whether or not, you know, about our intent to operate 24 hours a day. And I just wanted to revisit that. There are some benefits to the local area about the store being open, the ability for basically anybody to get gas and other provisions during inclement weather or power loss. And then the operators of these stores see in the evening hours, they provide the services to people who maybe work a late shift at a hospital or LLB and what have you. Emergency responders have opportunity to stop in. And just people outside of hours who suddenly realize they ran out of diapers or dog food have that opportunity to get out and pick up something in these neighborhood markets. The illuminated parking area, it's open for, it's over when the business is open, is my estimation, and I did talk to a police officer, not here in town, but about lots that are dark tend to attract more mischievousness or just plain bad deeds than a well lit operating parcel. I think of how anyway. So as far as crime, no Rusty Lantern of the 30 or so that are active has ever been robbed at night. And once we have, with the backup generator addition, it'll be even another refuge, if you will. Somebody in the local area needs to go in, charge a phone or what have you. They'll be available. One of the things from an operational standpoint that's really important, the 24 hours, is it gives that night shift as an opportunity for staff to clean, restock, prepare for the next day. Whereas if you closed for a short period at night, you'd still have people arriving a couple hours early to do those things or staying late for cleanup. It just makes more sense operationally for these things, for a store like this, to stay open throughout the night. As far as the lighting goes, this is a store in Turner. I stopped by a couple weeks ago to take some photos to see how the folks can see how the light looks. These are all full cutoff LED lights. And I think you can see that underneath the canopy, the pool of light underneath is fairly well restricted. This light, it's really restricted right here to the parking lot. It's not reaching back out to the grassy areas. And as I move around the building, again, you can see how the light is contained right at the site. Again, this light is creating this pool of light in the entrance. That's the moon, not a light. And again, when you look out towards the street, all the site lighting is controlled. So LED lighting really does do a great job of keeping the light where it needs to be and not where it shouldn't be. Again, this is just for review. Talking about the sidewalks, we had gone over this sidewalk to Faraday and the sidewalk up to Cathy Lane with DOT, and they think those are appropriate, and really kind of waiting to see what happens with the roundabout. Again, with the roundabout plan as it is overlaid, you can see how that lays in here. And this is why we changed up the sidewalk on the site plan, just so it would already be constructed, and if the roundabout gets built, nothing on the site has to be disturbed. going back through, looking at the building. These are renderings based on the plans. And I'm going to step through those. One thing I do want to note is that we had originally thought we were going to be doing a pole sign here at the entrance, and now we're looking at doing a monument sign, which is a bit lower, still externally illuminated. You can see what that looks like better in this picture. So I think it's a bit more neighborhoody. But let me step through here. This is a store. This one's actually in Bethel that just opened up. And you can see that rendering kind of brought to life and put a lot of effort in the detail, the brickwork and the indoor-outdoor fireplace and the patio to really take these things to a next level. The aquifer protection, again, I don't want to go through this. We're getting into a late evening, and I understand. But we will have all the double-walled tanks with the interstitial fluids that do the monitoring. We have training procedures in place for all of our stores. The memo in your packet goes through the Route 100 design standards, and I believe it indicated those had all been met.
Yeah.
So I'm going to let Lisa speak briefly about the hydrogeology and the peer review.
My name's Lisa Jacob. I'm a principal and a senior geologist at CV and Mahar Engineers. And I've got a few slides put together. This is a very high degree of recycled content. This is almost entirely material that you've seen before, but it's been several months. And I pulled it together in a couple of additional drop-in pieces of information to maybe to support the discussion or where the discussion might go today. Some of, I just as a quick refresh of what's happened since the last time we spoke, we were, CV and Mahar attended in February to present the findings of the hydrogeologic investigation. After that, at that point, the planning board requested that the town conduct a peer review of the hydrogeo assessment, which then the town engaged Drumlin Environmental LLC. And we had an opportunity to hear some of their questions, to provide some information in response to some of Drumlin's questions. We received their peer review on May 13th and provided some responses, some additional information in response to some of their comments in a memo that we just finalized today. So this is late-breaking, you know, one of the pieces of late-breaking information that we've chatted about. If it's helpful, I can provide an sort of a broad strokes overview of at least how we read Drumlin's areas of comment and the updates that we have provided. I understand you'll have an opportunity to reflect on this in more depth at your leisure. But we provide an overview of West Cumberland over here. The proposed gas station and convenience store are in a mapped sand and gravel aquifer, which I believe is better shown here. We're at the margins of it, and so the saturated thickness is not as great as it would be toward the middle or the central portions of the aquifer. The underground storage of petroleum is allowed within the mapped sand and gravel aquifer, within the town aquifer protection overlay, only upon a positive finding of fact from the planning board that the use would not adversely affect the aquifer. And then we understand the town would rely on the DEP, the state, to provide guidance and enforcement for permitting and construction. And as we had chatted about in the winter, the DEP did not require an investigation, but offered the applicant the opportunity to rely on published mapping for their variance application. And so Cumberland Real Estate Group decided to do that, to rely on published mapping, use that in their variance application, and Kurt spoke about the results of that. We do find that there are several areas with USTs within the Aquifer Protection Overlay. There are 4 1,000-gallon USTs at the Turnpike Rest Area. There are 2 USTs, one 8 and one 10,000-gallon UST in an area south of the proposed station. And the site of the proposed station has been a service station in the past, and so there have been USTs present at the property in the past. And let's see, the investigation findings. This is a clip out of our the hydrogeologic report, and one of the findings from several test wells that were put in was the general inferred flow of direction of groundwater flow is from the southeast to the northwest across the site. And one of the points that Drumlin brought up in their review is that this is a very localized inference. This direction of groundwater flow is very local to the site, and that topography in this area is relatively flat, and so there could be, on a slightly more regional scale, there can be other elements, other directions of groundwater flow, and we certainly see that. We agree with that entirely. But right here within the central part of the site, we find, based on measurements that we've made, that groundwater would flow from the southeast to the northwest. And the nearest water supply well is a well located on Cathy Lane. It's a little over 300 feet from the nearest corner of the tanks, but it is in an inferred up-gradient, hydrogeologically up-gradient location from the tanks. So water would be flowing generally from the location of this water supply well toward the site, not the other direction. And so that provides a level of comfort with respect to the nearest water supply well. Let's see, what did we put in next? There have been some investigations of soil and water quality, and Drumlin has reviewed some of those investigations, some of those data. There have been some additional data that we've provided since their review. We did notice evidence of contamination during our drilling in December, and we spoke to you some about that when we were here in the wintertime. In our drilling at the location nearest the intersection right here, which was the first well that we put in, we noticed some residual contamination in soil that was above the water table and in water itself. And so, and we did some water quality testing of that well and one other on the property, and Drumlin reviewed that and provided you with some of their assessment of that. Once we had identified that residual contamination, we communicated with the project owners and the property owners. The drilling that we had done for the hydrogeo study was before we had initiated a phase 1 environmental site assessment. And so the historical review, the environmental records review, the sort of deep dive into the history of the property and the area hadn't been launched yet. But after that point, Cumberland Real Estate Group requested that we do a phase 1 environmental site assessment, and that has been completed in draft, but is wrapping up a little bit of documentation to finalize that. And then we did the baseline water quality monitoring that we mentioned. And in addition to that, based on the findings of the phase 1 and our understanding of the historical use of the property, we did a phase 2 environmental site assessment, and the focus of that was soil, and to investigate the soils in areas that might be associated with former use and storage of petroleum. We did soil borings in several areas and did not find evidence of contamination or exceedance of DEP standards in the locations that we investigated. And I'll show you those. Oh, here we are. This is the current current parcel, And so the project location extends beyond the field of view here. MW2 is the location we mentioned that was the first location we put in December, where it had the residual evidence of contamination. What we did to assess the soil was put in 7 soil borings down to water table depth at locations that either were known or suspected to correspond to former uses, including like this dashed boundary was the former canopy and fuel dispensing island. And so we did a soil boring in that location. And what we found was very little field screening, so visual or olfactory evidence of contamination or field screening with instruments as we were doing the soil borings. And we did select some soil samples for lab analysis, and we found no exceedances in the soil of the parameters we tested for. We did not find any exceedances of state standards. And so we do know soil and groundwater impacts are right here, just up gradient from that. Didn't find evidence in the soils, and so we've put a report out to Cumberland Real Estate Group, and they're reviewing that, and we'll finalize that in due course. But may move forward with a plan for management of soil in the event that in site excavations. But that's work that's been completed since the last time we met. One other thing that I wanted to call to your attention, I might just leave this site plan up to talk through some of the Drumlin's other comments. They made comments in 4 general categories. And so we responded with additional information or simply acknowledgement to each of those 4 categories. And so when you do have an opportunity to review those memos, you'll find their general, I believe it's a 3-page memo with 4 comments, and then we respond to those individually. And their first is about utility location. It's about the site location itself. And so the site will be served by municipal water and natural gas. And one of the points that they raised in that comment is about the proposed disposal area. And this is very approximate. I've dropped an approximate location of the originally designed septic system onto this because that was part of the focus of one of Drumlin's comments. And Kurt mentioned in his remarks earlier that one of the possibilities is to do some limited redesign of the septic system. You'll notice our inferred groundwater flow directions are the blue arrows are giving the general inferred direction here. And this proposed disposal area, tucked as it is in the eastern part of the L, has the potential for water to be moving, cutting across this corner and moving across a property boundary that we wouldn't want to see. And so there is an opportunity to engage the licensed site evaluators, the folks that designed the septic system, that on behalf of Cumberland Real Estate Group, to redesign the disposal field a bit. This was beyond what CV and Mahar was asked to do, but it is part of the sort of holistic look at the site hydrogeology and the general site use and impact. So we wanted to bring that to your attention, just give you a visual cue of what Drumlin may have had in their minds when they were making that comment. And as Kurt had mentioned, the opportunity to have some redesign done there. That was their initial comment. They also mentioned the historical site use and brought forward some of the residual contamination that CV and Mahar observed in our earlier drilling and some of the findings from our review of environmental documents, including some of the DEP spill reports. And Drumlin mentioned that, and we've got some information about that in our hydrogeo report and also in our memo. We were able to find DEP reports that discussed the removal of underground storage tanks in earlier days, under earlier site ownership. And they also discussed the presence of petroleum contamination in soils and as well installation and monitoring of 8 monitoring wells. We're not able to find the wells. We're not able to find evidence of recent monitoring of them. But one of the points that Drumlin raised was that the site itself will be served by public water, but there may be some effect from previous, not current or ongoing, but previous uses of the property to down gradient uses of groundwater. And I'm bringing this up to just sort of to reflect on the fact that DEP has looked at this in the past. And this had been done under some work that was directed by the Maine Department of Environmental Protection. And if it were, if there were concerns about down gradient groundwater uses, they may be the ones that, that could help, sort of chart that path forward. But it wouldn't necessarily be associated with current or proposed uses of the property. That gets us to the last of Drumlin's comments, where we're talking about the design standards of the underground storage tanks. So what CV and Mahar identified as the inferred general direction of groundwater flow and the velocity of groundwater flow informed some of our recommendations for site use and design. And we pointed toward the stringent standards that the DEP would rely on the design of underground storage tanks and the monitoring standards. And Drumlin had suggested that we might want to expand on those. And I believe that Kurt has provided some significant detail, both verbally but also in information that he's provided to you. And so I would direct you toward that. It's certainly outside of my area of expertise. I'm not a design engineer, but the hydrogeologists look at what we know and what we can infer from direct measurements, and we're also looking at what the use would be, and we understand that there is some stringent requirement for the use and storage of petroleum in this environment, in this setting. I think that's all I would draw your attention to, with the understanding that these are things that have landed on your plates quite recently, and so we're happy to provide further comment or leave you to read at your leisure.
Thank you. Anything else from the applicant?
Just to pick up on that, Lisa mentioned it briefly, that we have engaged CV Mahar for what they call an EMMP, or Environmental Materials Management Plan, just because of the work that's been done quite exhaustively. We know we're going to get to a little bit of contaminated soil in that corner, and we'll have a plan well spelled out for the contractor about what to do with that soil, where to take it, and how it will be properly disposed of. At that point, really, I don't think I need to go back to my presentation. I'd be happy to answer questions from the board or updated comments from the public at this point.
Okay, first of all, Carla, so will we be in a position at the next meeting to review the findings of facts, or are there still stuff out there that would need to be done?
No, I think everything will be tidied up by then. I did have draft findings in your packet, which you saw. There were just too many that had the response that the peer review engineer has made a comment.
Yeah.
So for the next meeting, we'll have all of those things.
So are they
draft.
looking at the next meeting for both preliminary and final approval at the next meeting?
Well, it's site plan approval,
Oh,
so
okay.
it's just one step.
Sorry, yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Questions from the board? Yes.
Yeah. My concern, of course, had been the hydrogeologic peer review, and we've got that now, so that's great. Another thing that I was waiting for, though, was the market study. I think we were promised a peek at the market study that had been prepared for this. So I would like to see that before we...
I did send one in with the information. It was for planning board and staff eyes only, but if you didn't get that, I apologize, and we'll make sure.
It was part of your submission pack, electronic submission. So everything that came in was uploaded to the file, so somewhere in there it should be. If it's not, I'll get you a copy
Carla,
tomorrow.
our file is way smaller than I would have expected.
Yeah.
Like, we don't have any plans in here.
Oh, boy.
It's 30, we see 32 pages.
32 pages.
Oh, that's not right.
We, so,
The market study alone is probably like 30 pages.
as you can see, Christina is not here. She went out for shoulder surgery. So I've had another employee uploading everything to the packets, and so I apologize. I thought that I did see everything was there. It's not. Again, we're just gonna have to pick this up tomorrow and carry it into the end zone for next month.
Okay, well, that explains a lot.
So there was a marketing study. Okay, so we got a couple of comments that subsequent was to we should have a marketing study. Well, there is one.
Yeah, I can leave this one behind tonight and ensure that we get it emailed, you know, maybe individually, so I don't know if there was a file size limitation or something.
Any other questions from the board?
Carla, do any zones, I'm haphazardly flipping through a few zones, do any zones have actual hours of operation standards?
Town Center District, which is where.
I don't
across
even
from
see
the
it in
food
there.
stop. Yep, they're in there.
Yeah,
As you know, we got into that with the Rise Pizza.
I know, but I'm looking at it right now.
This is the newest.
There's the
Gotta
cafe
go
standards.
online. Gotta do it online.
Oh, you have to do it on, because we wouldn't want to have the, we don't have to get the answer right now, but if there are any hours of operations, that is the one place in the town where that, where
That's,
they,
that's where it would be, and I've seen it there. Let me see if, these could be
Sometimes
older,
these aren't right.
older books that haven't been updated, but I don't know why, because.
okay, yep.
Yep,
We
okay.
don't need
Yes,
it right
we-
now
We
anyway.
do have them in the Town Center District.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions from the board? Before I open the public hearing, I'll read the two letters. The second one is quite long, but the public has a right to be heard, so we will march onward. First one is from Bruce Sherwin. Good day, Ms. Nixon. I have some thoughts on the proposed development of a convenience store with fuel pumps along with a bank on Gray Road. As I am unable to attend the May 28th, 2024 Planning Board meeting, I'm asking you to represent them at the Tuesday night meeting. Has the developer conducted a marketing study to determine if there's enough business to profitably sustain their operation? A marketing study may also indicate how the current existing small businesses will fare with the addition of an apparently well-heeled new competitor in the neighborhood. I have been associated with businesses, both small and large, my entire working career. Depending upon offerings, I suspect that the new competitor will possibly take business from at least 5 current operations: Bud's Golf, J Brothers, Cumberland House of Pizza, Brew Through Coffee, and Caddy's Ice Cream Shack. All 5 of these are small businesses that I expect make relatively small profit margins and in turn makes them vulnerable to possible hard times rather quickly. This developer is a much larger operation with much deeper pockets that may create problems for these 5 that the businesses may not solve. As far as the amount of business available to split up, some of these 5 businesses have gone to closing Sundays and at least one Saturday also. I believe that the food stop in Cumberland Center has been closed Sundays for a while now. I'm not sure how long the new developer will be open 24/7 either. There is just not business to support it, in my opinion. As far as a bank goes, the last I knew they did not have a bank lined up. I believe that it will be a tough commitment for them to fill based on the lack of financial business that may be available. Bruce Sherwin, Blanchard Road. The second one is from Janice Balding. I attended the planning board meeting when one of the agenda items was regarding changing the business operating hours in the center from 9 to 11 p.m. Something George Turner said struck me, and I'm paraphrasing, but he said it's just not the text of the ordinance that matters, it's the attention matters too. West Cumberland currently has no restrictions on hours of operation, but what was the intention for that lack of restriction? It doesn't take too far to look to understand why. As far as I-95 and 2 rest stops on either side of the turnpike where 24/7 access to fuel is a requirement. If you look at the VCC guidelines, you will also note that there is zone for a hotel, clearly a 24/7 business, but did the attention go further? Was the attention a zone full of businesses operating at all hours? Of course not. Nowhere else in Cumberland would a chain gas and convenience store ever be considered, let alone one that would be operating 24/7. The center balked at 2 additional hours of a pizza place being open, and the planning board's recommendation to the town was no intention matters. The town manager, in his final budget presentation to the town council, spoke of West Cumberland and the promise of development of a business zone, the last hope for a substantial one in Cumberland. He mentioned, as he has in the past, as of others, how development in West Cumberland to date has been haphazard, unplanned, and unstructured. This despite the existence of design standards for a zone that talks for New England buildings. The town manager, in fact, dazzled residents with renderings of hardware stores with walk-up apartments, landscaping bike lanes, an attractive walkable neighborhood that all Cumberland would be proud to claim. A 24/7 gas station convenience store was not in that rendering. In fact, another document commissioned by the town is the very type of business that was recommended not to be permitted in West Cumberland at all to protect the vulnerable aquifer. And if it's built, it'll contribute to the haphazard, unplanned, and random design of the West Cumberland VCC. It will create a traffic headache if the intersection remains, and even worse, if if the roundabout actually comes to fruition, it will be more of the same. More than the future of West Cumberland, permitting this business will take away from what is West Cumberland's past and present. Numerous locally owned businesses will not be able to compete. We all know this is true. There is a misperception that anyone opposed to this project is opposed to development in West Cumberland or anywhere else in town. Nothing could be farther from the truth. You will note that you have heard few, in fact, if any, objections to a bank included in this same proposal. We have the same concerns as the center and Forsyth about the impact on their homes and traffic concerns, but unlike those 2 areas of the town, we welcome a thoughtful, attractive, planned business zone full of a variety of businesses. We are, however, unlikely to come after anyone with pitchforks because we only want cute little bakeries and coffee shops and small office buildings with few employees who close at 5 p.m. But we also don't want to be in a place where anyone who can write a check for taxes is given space. West Cumberland is a unique and special part of Cumberland. Those who live here know it, and even if the rest of the town does not. For too long, West Cumberland has been the place to put projects that no other area of town would tolerate, which in fact would not even be considered for. Not long ago, an agenda item was brought up by the town council to lower design standards. Not in town, just in West Cumberland. That agenda item for the center of Forsyth would never even reach the floor, not even for Route 1. If it couldn't or wouldn't be built on Main Street, Blanchard Road, Tuttle Road, Route 88, it shouldn't be built in West Cumberland. Perhaps it is partially our own fault for being laid back, for not demanding or thinking we deserve better, but a community's laid-back nature does not mean it welcomes or deserves less consideration than the rest of the town. West Cumberland is the last hope for Cumberland to create a substantial business district. We know it, the town knows it, you know it. The town came forward with plans for a rotary and dazzled residents with beautiful renderings of gleaming new business zone, replete with sidewalks, bike lanes, landscaping, and visions for summer walks, for skillings to pick up some plants, to caddies for ice cream on a sunny day. With some reservations and likely some mistrust, most West Cumberland residents have embraced the vision, even though not entirely sold on the rotary itself. There are plans in place for a substantial business zone, with or without the rotary, visions of it, standards in place for it. I ask you not to throw all that promise out the window. The town of Cumberland has not fulfilled the visions and plans yet. It's too soon to decide they never will. The town of Gray recently put forward a plan to completely redesign and restructure Gray Center, to make it, in their words, a place where people want to stop, not just pass through. The West Cumberland Business Corridor can be what the published design standards described as New England-style buildings, illustrated with pictures from attractive business centers in downtown from other communities, a thriving and attractive destination, not merely a pass-through exits 53 and 54. It can look like an attractive, walkable downtown in any New England town if you can get to look like 2 miles over the Cumberland town line on Route 100 in Gray that you pass through on your way to Portland or to Gray. It can be a place to get gas at 2 a.m., pick up medical marijuana, or it can be what the town has envisioned, as promised, as recently as a few weeks ago as the town manager spoke to the town council, telling them to hold fast to the vision and how great it can be. Cumberland can be built into a substantial business district. There's a place businesses want to be and residents are proud to claim, or it can continue down the same haphazard random path it always has been on, which is only perpetuated with this proposed addition. I am asking you, beyond this one project, to look strategically to the future, to hold the town to the plans and standards they've planned, adopted, and published, and to give the new town manager and incoming town council the chance to realize them, to protect existing longtime businesses and not subtract businesses for the sake of adding one. I am asking you to fulfill the promises of the town of Cumberland made to West Cumberland to protect what is both and below our community and build toward the gleaming business district they asked us to trust them to build for all of Cumberland. I am asking you to do what George Turner spoke of at the prior meeting, to look past just the text and consider the intentions. Janice Spalding, West Cumberland. I thank Dr. Duty, who was my speech professor at the University of Rhode Island, to learn how to read words. So those are the two letters. At this point, I'll open the public for comment. Anybody that wish to comment on this? Yes.
Terry Maloney Kelly, West Cumberland. Thank you for bringing up the question about the market study, because I've been very curious about that myself, to really see, is there really a need for a 24-hour-a-day gas station in West Cumberland? Now, I realize that the center is losing their gas station, but I highly doubt anyone will head to West Cumberland to get their gas when they can go someplace much closer. So my issue or my concerns is the glow in the dark. And we see it now in West Falmouth from the Irving station. And I don't know in size comparison how this will compare to the West Falmouth Irving, but you can see that coming from miles, and you can see it from the Turnpike overpass on Blackstrap Road. And there is already a lot of light pollution in that area because the main turnpike, I don't know, probably half a mile of lights. The poor folks that are going into the Chase Pit will not need any outside lighting to play in their backyards at night because of the lights there. So that's a great concern, really, for me and our neighborhood and the neighbors, residential neighbors. And honestly, it just, you know, you drive into a place that's all lit up. I don't know, that's just not my vision of Cumberland. So my other concern, I've done my own little traffic study, if you want to call it that. If the Rotary does not go in, trying to get, if you come to the end of Blackstrap Road, which is where I come from, and turn right, and if you wanted to go into that gas station, you have to turn left. I will tell you that I have almost gotten hit twice, just pretending like I was going to turn there, because the traffic, it's 35 miles an hour. And I've had, honestly, people's eyes were bugging out when they realized that I wasn't moving right along and I was thinking about making a left-hand turn. You can easily get into the little plaza on the right because you don't have to wait for oncoming traffic. But this other direction, if we've had problems at that intersection, we're going to have a lot of rear-end accidents, I believe. Anyone trying to go south on Route 100 and turn left into that area. So for myself, I would definitely never try to do that and go across the intersection and come in from the Skillins Road backwards. So I had sent some thoughts to the planning board. I know that you folks don't do too much with the design aspect, and I really appreciate how nicely everybody, the designer put in the plan to have a nice outdoor fireplace and places to sit along the side of the road. But quite frankly, you're right on Skillings Road, and if there's a Rotary there, I just think there would be better use of that money by the owner to have more inside seating, especially given how many days a year we really have weather to enjoy outside seating. So that was one of my other considerations, to have more inside seating regardless of what the weather is, so that you could enjoy a cup of coffee with your neighbor at the corner. Thank you.
Thank you, Terry. Anybody else? Yes.
Jean Graves, also West Cumberland, and I'm right near that area as well of Skillen and Route 100. And basically, again, I know they've talked about the 24 hours, and I see that still as an issue as far as what people it would draw. I know there was some talk about the fact that it would at least allow people who are out beyond that time to gather there. I do assume that there will be a liquor license and there will be liquor sold there, at least beer and wine. Is that correct, or am I incorrect?
Just beer and wine.
Just beer and wine. But, and again, I think that raises the question of people beyond any reasonable time going there. I also agree with Terry, who just spoke, that the traffic, it is extremely dead in that whole area after 9 o'clock at night. I mean, I come, whenever I come, there is no traffic. No one is really coming in that way. And unless you're making this a destination, which I don't think you quite are, I think it's not even going to have the market draw. So that's it. That's just what I'm saying.
Thank you. Anybody else? Yes.
So thanks for this meeting. So this is Ross Goldberg, and I'm a near neighbor to the planned project. And I just want to say that I resonated strongly to the second letter that you read this evening. And I think that it's, although I am not opposed to progress and change, I work a lot with change personally. So I get change, and I also understand progress, and progress happens no matter what you do. But I think that consideration for the values that were raised in that second letter is warranted.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Anybody else?
Bob Vale, Cumberland Town Council. I cannot sit here and watch the town manager be verbally abused without coming to his defense. I know he's a big guy and he can do it himself, but two of you served on the town council. If you go out there in the hallway and you look at the pictures of people who served in this community on the town council, every one of them, I think, still lives in the community today. Very few of them served and then moved on. Every one of us has espoused economic activity for this community and trying to build it up. George, you tried to sell that piece of property down on Morrison Hill for years and years and years, and finally got its zoning changed to complete the sale. The town manager
I
doesn't...
didn't get a zoning change. The council found a way to get affordable housing in there. That's what happened. And as you say, very rightly, 5 years, I had a bank that was willing to take a position, and then they dropped out. And at that point, after 5 years of it trying, town council decided that that property down there was appropriate to put.
I'm not disagreeing.
I just want to tell you, I'm sorry that we didn't wait longer, frankly, because we do need business property to stay business property in this town, what little of it we have.
I think you're missing my point. My point is that the town manager does not operate in a vacuum. The town manager works at the direction of the town council, and to suggest that his ideas are his alone are not. It's by the backing of the council.
Who suggested that?
You interrupted me, George. You didn't let me finish. So
we're not
what I'm trying to say.
Society.
I have the floor, please. What I'm trying to say is the town manager has served this community long and hard, and frankly, I'm not going to stand by and watch him be berated for his moving a vision forward in this community. What we all have at issue here tonight is some of the nuts and bolts of the pieces of here, and they're all valid concerns. Whether it's 24 hours or setbacks or traffic issues. But the fact of the matter is that the town manager has served this community for 2 decades, and he has served at the pleasure of the town council, of which there are 4 of us here, current and past members. And I think that I stand heartily in support of his efforts.
Any other members of the public that wish to comment? A couple more.
Bill Shane, Town Manager. Thank you, Bob, but I take no personal offense to anything that was said tonight. Everyone has an opinion. Everyone can have that opinion. And it's at places like this in front of the planning board we have to accept debate. Not all ideas are great ideas. Not all ideas are terrible ideas, but this board is here to adjudicate an allowable use, and that's what they're doing tonight. I take no personal offense to this. I mean, I have to be up here and catch the javelins, and they know that, and they're supportive as well. And everything that was read or said tonight, those are debates I've had with these folks in person as well. So, thank you, but it's not necessary. And thank you to the board for listening and sharing those, because we only get better if we can share different opinions. If everything is all vanilla and everything is difficult and it's all easy, then, we wouldn't need a board, we wouldn't need a council, and we could all get along. But it's not how it works, and this is how we set up the process. And I support 1,000% of what you're doing, Mr. Chair. I support the process, and I support the way it's going tonight. I take absolutely no personal offense to anything that was said.
Mr. Kopp.
Ron Kopp, West Cumberland, Cumberland Town Councilor, and I'm the owner of this property. Everybody in this room, I guess, has a vision for my property. My property. What I'm asking for is a permitted use. Cut and dry, permitted use. The gentleman that is trying to purchase this property has jumped through numerous hoops. He will get everything in order. Somebody in this room doesn't like the idea that they're going to put a gas station in West Cumberland. There was been a gas station there for more than most of my life. It's been vacant for 25 years that I've owned it. I've paid the property taxes on this for 25 years. I bought this as an investment. I'm 62 years old now, and now I'm gonna cash in on my investment. People don't like what I wanna do, but it's a permitted use. So what's the issue? Impact on current businesses. Brew Through, Caddy's, Cumberland House of Pizza. I own them. I own the property. Competition isn't hurting anybody. I own Sammy's next door. I rent to him. He sells cars. That's what I do for business. Competition doesn't hurt anybody. Everywhere that there's a McDonald's, there's a Burger King on the adjacent corner. Why? Because they attract business. They feed off each other. I don't think the market study amounts to anything. This gentleman owns numerous stores. He wouldn't be here in front of any of us if he didn't think he'd make it. To me, that's hogwash, unnecessary. This is a permitted use. He will get you all of the permits that you need. Everything will be in order. I commend you guys for what you do because you have to sit here and listen to this. It's ridiculous. And that's all I have to say.
Anybody else that has any comments? Kathy?
Kathy Ellen McDonald, been in the town all my life. And yes, I'm related to the Kopp family. My mother was a Kopp. I want to bring up the fact that my parents started a grocery store in 1957. And the first one, we closed it in 1971. But my father stayed open until 11 p.m. And we did quite well. And so many people thanked us when that baby was sick or needed more milk because my father was open. It's those emergencies that really do make a difference. Later on, when we did get out of the grocery store business and we was just doing the craft shop and greenhouses and gift shop, we decided to get back into the grocery store business. My parents missed it, and, you know, my father liked to listen to the neighborhood, their concerns, and that's how he became a town councilor, and my brother Philip. The last big snowstorm, all the gas stations around was closed. Luckily, the guys that were doing the plowing, they could get onto the turnpike using the back entrances off Gray Road and Marginal Way. Not a lot of people know about those, that they could get over there. But we needed gas, and all our other gas stations were out. Before the Great Depression, we had a very busy neighborhood over there. There was Spenny's gas station. We had a zoo, tea houses, hamburger shops, places where people could stay overnight. There was 2 different places where they had overnight cabins. So a lot of this is all forgotten about, and also where the corner of Highland Avenue and Gray Road was another gas station. So we have always done well because what used to be called the Portland to Lewiston Road, you know, it got changed to Gray Road, but we've always had a busy section going through there. And I don't see it slowing down any. Housing developments are going in like crazy, so it's only going to get busier. So I really do not see any problems with 24/7, to be honest. I know that people need things in an emergency. And, you know, if there is an accident at the Four Corners, which there has been plenty of, that gas station is right there to help somebody out. Probably there'll be some cameras on, and we can see what happened to that accident. So, it's my lifetime community. I don't plan to go anywheres. And again, competition. When all of a sudden people heard that this was going in, maybe, all of a sudden Cumberland House of Pizza decided, oh, let's do some specialty pieces, you know. They're up in their game. And Brew Through, all of a sudden they're doing extra fancy sandwiches. So it's competition that makes us thrive even better, provide better services. So I wouldn't worry about it myself. Thank you.
Thanks, Kathy. Anybody else wish to comment? Seeing none, I'll close the public hearing and go back to the council. Do we want to talk about waivers to give them kind of an indication?
I was going to ask, I don't know if they're requesting any waivers. I don't see it in the.
I thought I saw 4 of them.
We are.
They're requesting.
Oh, yeah, where is that?
Well, I don't think we're gonna waive the market study.
No,
That's
we've
still-
got, I mean,
we've
we
got
don't
it,
need
so
to.
we're good there.
It just hasn't made it to us.
I got them up on the screen.
So they've got the soils, interconnected driveway with entrance, signs illuminated.
And did our engineer weigh in on these? I thought they did.
I think he signed off on all of those.
I thought he did too. Oh, he only did the 2, and then he, at least in this version that's in our packet, though there perhaps maybe another one, the only ones he was talking about were the high-intensity soil server and the market study, and he was suggesting that they request the other waivers for the, I mean, yeah, I don't, you're making, so you want to make the interconnected driveway
Wider.
8 feet wider.
Yes, sir.
That seems like, I mean, if they were making it smaller, I'd be concerned about emergency vehicles. That doesn't, oh, it's in the sign ordinance? Is the signage, is that where that's coming from? Because that's not in site plan review, is it?
I think that's in the Route 100 design
Design
standards.
standards.
I think it's tough to not saying where we're going as a board with 24-hour operation, but I think it would be hard to say that whatever we approve for hours of operation, to say they can't have a sign illuminated during those hours.
Yeah.
And I think we talked about the driveway 50 feet from point of tendency with a roundabout. There is no roundabout there. I can't, we can't give I see no need for a waiver for something that, a condition that does not currently exist. So,
That makes sense?
I was going to say, on the sign, too, you pointed out the sign has changed, right?
Well, we changed the form of the sign from a pole sign 20 feet in the air to a monument sign, which is basically ground mounted.
Right.
But they would still be externally illuminated with the
yeah,
goosenecks.
I mean, I personally, I think an externally illuminated sign is going to be less intrusive because, again, you're not going to have the light. The light's not going to go off of the property except maybe onto Route 100. But you've got the photometric plan. We just don't have it in here, so I can't tell you it even makes it to Route 100. But yeah, I think that's the least intrusive method of illuminating the sign.
Everybody, so they can get some guidance, everybody's okay with those waivers, so you can kind of take that So Carla, we can expect then hopefully a set of findings of fact, probably just conditioned on DEP approval and all that other thing. So
Yes.
I see no reason why I can't entertain a motion to table.
I will make a motion that we table site plan review for development of a convenience store with fuel pumps and a bank with drive-through to be located at 181 Gray Road, tax assessor map U19, lot 12, and a portion of 173 Gray Road, tax assessor map U19, lot 13, in the Village Center Commercial Zoning District under the US Route 100 design guidelines.
Here a second?
A second.
Okay, motion not debatable. All in favor? Opposed?
Once again, we thank you for your time and the public's
Well,
input.
Thank you, and hopefully everything will be in order so that we can move that through next month.
We'll do our best.
Okay, do we have any administrative matters?
No, I don't think there are any administrative.
Okay, so I'll entertain a motion for adjournment.
So moved.
Second?
Second.
Okay, all in favor? We're adjourned. Thank you, everybody.